So the holidays are coming up soon. Do you know how to be a good guest? Do you know how to be a good host or hostess? Do you know what's expected of you when you show up? These are all things that if you're going to make great friends and if you're in business and you're trying to grow your colleagues or customers, you need to know these things. So I am Elizabeth Duncan-Hawker. I'm the author of Collecting True Friends. Be a magnet to those worthy of your time and devotion. And I got to tell you, the things that I see that pull people closer to us in business or in social is when we have good manners. And good manners means asking questions ahead of time. So for example, if you're invited to something, go ahead and ask them, say, what are most people going to be wearing? Is this a dressy event? Is it okay to show up in jeans? Is it okay to bring my children? I cannot tell you how many times I've seen that be a big problem. Also, ask if it's a sit down. If you're invited to come to some place, is it a buffet, or you might say buffet, that people are showing up to that then they can just kind of self-serve and they can get their meal, or is it heavy appetizers? Or is it a planned meal, which means it's going to start at a specific time? If it is, you do not want to be the person that's showing up late because you can't find a place to park. So scope out where you're going to park, know where you're going to the building ahead of time, ask how the dress is supposed to be so that you show up in the correct clothes. And here's another tip I'll give you. It's much better, my friends, to be overdressed than it is to be underdressed. When you show up at a place and everybody else is dressed up at a higher level than you are, you can always, just never get to the point you feel like you're going to fit in. But you can always, if you're overdressed, you can take your jacket off, you can take a scarf off, you can remove your necktie, you can roll up your sleeves. But if you are the person that shows up in jeans or shorts and flip-flops, and you thought when they said it was a pool party, you didn't quite clarify that, and it was a party by the pool. And then you get there and they're floating these beautiful Japanese lanterns, and they have waiters showing up and cocktails being served and a little quartet playing over in the corner, and you're standing up looking like you're ready to jump in the pool. So that's a true story. I've seen somebody else have that happen too. So you want to make sure that you spend some effort. So ask good questions. Also, what can you bring? What can you contribute? Always ask, and also find out who the host and hostess is. You would be surprised how many people get invited to something and then they show up and they don't even know that this person is the owner of that business, or this is their home that they're going to. And then when they get introduced, they don't even know to say, oh my goodness, thank you so much for having us here today. Thank you for inviting us, or thank you for hosting this today. So it's super important. Know who's in charge, know who the decision makers are ahead of time. And if you don't know how to do that, ask whoever's inviting you, get the names. You can look people up on LinkedIn. You can look them up on the internet. Go and look at their social media profile. Try to understand what they're into. And if you want to bring a token gift, make sure that there's something that, for example, that alcohol would be a welcome gift. In some societies, that's not appropriate. Other times, it's fine too. Or bring a handmade item from your country would be a good gift, something that you think that would be neutral. So those are good things for host and hostesses. For gifts, if you are the host and hostess, and you're inviting people ahead of time, and it's the holidays, it is super important to have an option for them to be able to eat. For example, when we got ready to do a major book signing launch on the ocean front for Collecting True Friends, we had over 100 people coming. I was asking and listening, and what I heard was when I'd said we're going to have champagne, we're going to have cake, we're going to have music, and so many of the different people commented, gosh, I love cake, but I'm gluten-free. Enough people said that to me that I heard it and I went, you know what? We need another cake, and it needs to be gluten-free. It was a simple thing, my friends. All you have to do is call up and tell the caterer and say, I want to make sure that one of it is going to fit that. If you know somebody has a vegan diet, make sure there's some extra veggies there. Make sure there's some extra hummus. It's not that difficult. For example, one of the events I went to when I was looking at the coordinator, I looked at it and I said, do you realize that you have cheese in every single dish that we're going to serve to the guests? She's like, well, that's what I like to eat. And I said, but there's a lot of people that are lactose intolerant, or that's not what they're comfortable eating. So just take a peek. Make sure your menu is on track. Make sure that you have plenty of different kinds of options. Not everybody drinks alcohol. Make sure there's some non-alcoholic yummy drinks that are going to be available. Make sure on your invitations, or when you're inviting somebody, if it's not your place but you are inviting somebody, make sure that you give clear directions so that they know exactly where they're supposed to go. They know where they're supposed to park. They, like I said, you know what they're supposed to dress, right? So make sure that you're figuring out some of these things ahead of time. You'd be surprised how many people show up and then they're inadequately informed on what kind of event it was, or what they should be bringing, or perhaps it's a seafood all-you-can-eat thing and they don't eat seafood. That cues them up that they need to eat ahead of time, okay? And that's okay. So being a good guest means you don't want to impose upon your host or hostess, but being a good host or hostess means that you also need to be preparing for a variety of people, because you want them to have a wonderful time. So for example, make sure that the music selection is something that is going to be appealing to different types of folks in there, that you don't want to put them to sleep, for example. The other thing too is, with being a good guest and the holidays are here, this is not a time to critique people's recipes. Did you hear me? Please do not go places and say, you know what you should have put in this. Don't shoulda on people. Don't talk about how they should have decorated this different, or the right lights would have looked better like that, or the way you did it, or your aunt did it, or your daddy used to make it. Okay, please. Please do yourself a favor. Be the guest that shows up that says, oh my gosh, the lights look amazing. Oh my gosh, I can see how many details you put into making tonight very special for all of us. Thank you once again for putting such effort in there. Just pause a minute. Make sure that you express that, but do not tell people there's too much onion in the stuffing and the nut selection isn't this or that, or they could buy it better at this or that. That's not a time for your expertise to shine through. I've seen this happen so many times, and it's not what friends do, okay? Because you know why? Because you're telling somebody something and they cannot correct it. So when you tell somebody they can't correct something and you're in the midst of it, there's no turning back. And then it makes the person feel inadequate. And do you really think you're going to get another invite? So think about that too. So if you're in business, you want to be invited back, or you want to get to know somebody better, find a way to genuinely compliment somebody. Find a way that there's neutral territory that you can say, this was really enjoyable because. Also, the other great thing to do being a good guest or a good host or hostess, make sure you're introducing people. There is nothing more uncomfortable. Please listen. I'm going to make this really loud to you, okay? There's nothing more uncomfortable for everybody, human beings to human beings, is when we're standing there and we're waiting for an introduction. Okay, and then the two people are talking. They're having a great time talking, and we don't know, and we don't get introduced. If you do not remember the person, okay, to then introduce, just say, you know what, I would love to introduce you to my guest here that I brought tonight. Hi, this is Elizabeth Duncan-Hawker, and then she will pick up, like I would pick up on the clue that maybe you don't remember this person's name, and I would say, it is so nice to meet you. And then that person will say their name, okay? John will say, hey, yes, I'm John Frank. It's so nice to have you here, Elizabeth. John, such a lovely place. So nice to meet you. Now the person that's been trying to introduce me but struggling will say, John, the reason why I wanted you to meet Elizabeth was, and then he can pick it back up and then the conversation can start. But if you forget somebody's name, it's okay. Or the other thing you can do is you can just quietly say to somebody, there's somebody over there I want you to meet, and I'm sorry, I'm just blanking. I know we've met several times, but could you just remind me of your name? I'm just, and I always tell people, you know what, I haven't eaten enough today, and I'm sorry, my brain's not working if I forget their name. But you want to make a real effort to get to know people's names and embed that into your memory bank, okay? So that's a really big thing there, okay? But do not stand there and just ignore the people. That's the worst thing you can do, because what happens to the person standing there thinking, are they going to introduce me? If they're not a self-confident person, you know what they're going to think? They don't want to introduce me. There's a reason why they don't want to introduce me. Gosh, maybe I'm not supposed to be here. These are the kind of things that are running through people's minds, okay? So make sure you're introducing people. And the other thing is, a host or hostess, listen to who you're being introduced to, find out something, and then make sure then you can introduce that to the next person, because you want that person to feel included. We all want inclusion. In business and in our social circles, we all want to be seen. The biggest reason why we have loneliness right now all across the world, it's not just in America where I am at, okay? The biggest reason is because loneliness starts when we don't have a connection. And when we don't feel like we're connected to somebody, we can actually be in a room of 30 people with all the voices going on and all the clatter and the drinks and the movement and everything, and we can be alone. We can be lonely because inside we're feeling like we're not connected. So if you are trying to collect true friends, if you're trying to get a better class of people into your world, as I like to say, that are worthy of your time and your devotion, that means you're bringing in people that have your values. You're bringing in people who have your traits. You're bringing in folks into your life that you can make their life better, and they don't even know it yet, because that's what real friendships about. That's what real connections about. And studies are showing now that it even boosts our employee engagement. So the benefits of it are real. But to do that, we need to start spotting what's causing loneliness, what's stopping people from connecting. And over the holidays, it's one of the biggest things you can do right now. Reach out, pick up the phone, call somebody that you haven't talked to in a while, text them. I did this morning. We're getting ready to be up on another holiday, and I said, you know what, hey, would you two like to come into town? There's plenty of room at our table, with plenty of food. You don't need to bring anything. I'm just thinking of you. So do that. Reach out. If you haven't been talking to someone in a while and you liked them before we got through the whole pandemic thing, reach out to them, check in, because you know what? Here's the thing, and I've said this before, you might be the only person who invites that couple or that person to something over the holidays. If they choose to stay home, that's on them. You know why? Because they can tell people, oh, I got invited to a couple of different things, but I decided I'd rather just stay home. That's fine. But it's when somebody says, well, what did you do for the holiday? And then they say, oh, I just watched some TV. What they're really saying is, nobody called me, nobody invited me, I wasn't invited to anything, I didn't know where to go. So maybe they just go down to the local pub and they sit there at the counter by themselves, okay? So this is a perfect opportunity. If you're interested in collecting true friends, we cover so much more of this, the methodology in here. And I wrote this book to help the world. I don't want anybody to be lonely. And in business, if you want more clients, you want more customers, then you have to start seeing them as human beings. You have to start talking to them and knowing, do they have a dog? Do they have kids? Do they like sports? Have they traveled the world? Where are they born from? You have to have some interest in people. They're not just your employees. They're not just your customers or clients. These are human beings that are standing in front of us. So if you want to grow in your business, or you want to grow personally and have amazing friends and connections in your life, or perhaps you don't have the right connections in your life right now, okay? I understand that too. Here's a perfect opportunity. The holidays are coming. You've got 3 or 4 or 5 of them in a row together. This is your chance to reach out to anybody that you think that potentially might not have a place to go, might not have a connection. Check in with them. Ask them to go to something. And you don't have to invite them to your house. You get plenty of invitations, I'm sure, to go to the museum opening, to maybe the church bazaar that's happening. Just Google. Go in there and Google fun events in, and put in your zip code and put in a date range. You'd be surprised. You're going to find 20 different things that you could invite somebody to go with you to something. And you know what? If they say no, that's okay. Because guess what? Now you've started planting a seed that you'd like to see them again. And guess what? Eventually that reciprocity will come back to you, and they will reach out and pick up the phone or text you and go, you know what? I'm so sorry. When you reached out then, I couldn't do any of that. But you know what? This game's coming up. Do you want to come over and go and we'll get tickets to go there, or would you like to meet for a coffee? So if you want to improve your life, if you want to improve your connections, if you want to improve other people's lives, which is a really big important thing in my world, okay? This is your perfect opportunity. The holidays are coming. So be thoughtful, be a good guest, be a good host or hostess. Map out where you're going ahead of time. Make sure you're on time. Please make sure you're on time, right? Don't be that person that shows up late. Ask what the venue's like so you're dressed accordingly. Do not just bring extra people unless that they said, oh, there's going to be plenty of room, plenty of food. Anybody can show up, because you want to know if it's a sit-down event. If it is, you never want to show up with somebody extra, because that is a hot mess, and I've had it happen to me before, trying to squeeze 3 more seats in an already crowded room, okay? Don't put that on people. So be a good guest, be a good host, be a good hostess, and then remember, reciprocate. The law of reciprocity is so important, because if you were invited to something, and this is a forgotten art, it used to be a standard in our parents' world, but if you're invited to something, my friends, you're expected to invite the person back to something. Did you hear me? So if you've been invited to something and you went and you had a wonderful time, you're expected to invite them back to something. And if you don't entertain in your home, that's fine. If you don't entertain in your business, that's fine. Invite them to a restaurant. Invite them to the next thing. Like I said, I showed you how. You can Google, you can always find an event. But these are the ways that we build powerful connections. And right now, there's no reason anybody should be lonely. I'm on a mission to end loneliness, because loneliness is equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes a day to our body. And nobody needs to feel unhealthy. There's so much going on in the world. We can get rid of that. So the way you do that is you work on building amazing connections. And like I said, I'm Elizabeth Duncan-Hawker. I've written Collecting True Friends. It's a guidebook for you. Please reach out. I would love to hear what your thoughts are. If you have other brilliant ideas, put it in the comment sections. I'd love to have a conversation with you, because I'm always up to meeting new people. And let's make the world a better place. And also, especially right now over the holidays, right? We've all waited to finally we can have some sense of normalcy. So stay well, stay blessed, and until we talk again, thank you. Bye.